Side bending. Okay. Side bending, we're going to have the patient prone. Okay, we're going to have the patient prone. A lot of times I'll put a pillow under their belly, especially if it's that patient that has a lot of lordosis, because I want to keep them in a little bit more of a neutral position. So a lot of times I'll use a pillow. Sometimes I won't. Okay? With this one, you want to make sure the patient is as close as possible to you. So again, if you're reaching all the way across the table, it's hard to get to them. Okay? First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bend their knee. The reason for that is so I can manage their leg a little bit easier. Okay? What I'm going to then do is kind of this waist carry kind of thing. So I'm going to come under their leg like this. So I'm kind of holding on to them like this. Okay? Slide a little bit closer to the left edge here for me. That's good. So I flex their knee, and then I kind of come underneath and I grab under their thigh. Okay? I then go into my same stance as I had for the first one. Right? My feet apart, I'm facing the patient. Right? And now I'm going to get into the same type of movement that I just did, but now their leg is part of me. Okay? I'm kind of bringing the leg along for the ride. So I'm not kind of doing, way over here and doing this. That's much harder. If I just come alongside this and I kind of like grab onto this and hold it next to my thigh, right? I go into that same exact kind of weight shift left to right kind of thing. And now as I look down at the spine, I can see that I'm creating side bending. Okay? I'm creating, in this instance, side bending to the left. This would be the same as me trying to take him and pull him into left side bending. Right? Much harder to do. Right? So I'm taking that leg, I'm bringing it up into this position, I'm straddling, I'm facing him. Again, I'm making sure I have enough of an oscillation going. Right? So I have a rhythm going so I can feel that. And I'm also making sure, now you actually be able to see it, that I'm creating lumbar motion. If I'm just doing this real small here, I'm not exceeding his hip motion. I need to go through that hip motion until the point where his pelvis moves, and now I have lumbar motion. So make sure you're going far enough and fast enough to be able to feel it. Okay? This one is pretty easy, and sometimes I start with this one because you can see it and look at it a little bit nicer. I'm using the same area on my hand, and again, I'm picking that interspinous space. So, here's L4 or so. I'm kind of right at that spot between those spinous processes, and now as I'm creating this motion, I'm feeling for motion arriving at my finger. If I'm not feeling it, I'm probably not going fast enough or far enough, or so far that now I'm moving up here. So make sure, as I'm going through this, as I progressively move up to the higher levels of the lumbar spine, that's going to require more or less hip abduction. More, right? If I want to go from L5 and now I'm working all the way up to L1, the further I go up, the further I have to bring his hip to create motion up a little higher. Right? So I'm creating side bending to the left, and I'm just palpating for this. Now sometimes I'll kind of bias my hand toward the opposite side. So I'm not right over the center, but maybe a little bit to the right in this case. So I'm kind of feeling that opening up of spinous processes as I'm going into this motion. Again, the goal at this point is I'm trying to just feel motion. I'm just trying to feel motion. I'm not grading it, I'm not judging it, I'm just trying to feel motion at this point. Okay? And I'm doing it pretty easily with that leg kind of attached to my side. Okay? The mistake that sometimes is made, if a patient has a lot of hip flexor tightness and I do this, it pulls them into further lordosis. So on occasion, if I can't keep the knee bent, then I may have to kind of come in like this. Much harder. Right? It's much harder for me to do that than to keep the knee bent. Okay? As you're doing it, also make sure you're keeping this leg in the frontal plane. You don't want to be like this. See how his hip's extended? You want to keep him in that frontal plane right here. So it's almost like the front of his thigh is dragging along the table, staying in that plane. I don't want to bring him up into hip extension because now, right, I'm gonna reduce the motion that's available. So keep it in that frontal plane. All right, that's side bending pivums.